Wewe ni Mkenya, pigania nchi yako, pigania haki zako kama Mkenya. Wewe ni Mkenya, pigania nchi yako, pigania haki zako kama Mkenya. Raia mwema ni wajibu wako, uongozi bora hiyo ni haki yako. Tusimame pamoja sisi raia wa Kenya, uraia wetu umikononi mwetu.
Hello and welcome to the Wanawake Nyanjani podcast. This is a show where we elevate women's perspective as we delve into social, political and economic issues. And I'm your host, Cindy Kobe, and I'm here with a very interesting speaker, Miss Daisy Amdany. Daisy Amdany is the founding trustee and executive director of CRAWN Trust. She has a passion for good governance and development and women's rights enthusiast. And she has 20 years experience in this field. Welcome, Daisy.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being our first guest into this very interesting podcast. And we are hoping that this podcast will bring the perspectives of very many women at the grassroots level and here in Kenya. Kindly introduce CRAWN Trust and the work that you do and the history of CRAWN Trust.
So thank you so much for having me and congratulations on your first podcast, and thank you for having me as your first guest. So CRAWN Trust, a community advocacy and awareness trust, was founded in 2010. And we work around issues of women's inclusion and participation. We work with communities to carry out civic awareness, policy advocacy, and work with women to bring their voices into every level of leadership at both the grassroots and the national level. We do a lot of work. There's so much work that we do. We have the leadership and governance pillar, where we look very keenly into issues of leadership and governance, including good governance and women's participation, looking at the necessary legislation to guarantee the full participation of women in decision-making spaces. We have the networking and alliance building pillar, where we work with partnerships across the country to raise the voices of women and to come together to be able to speak with one voice around issues of women's political and economic emancipation. We believe that politics is important in our lives, and we encourage women to get actively involved because it affects every sphere of our lives, and of course the economic empowerment, so that it affords women better opportunities and choices in their lives. So we also have a socio-economic pillar where we work around women's issues on women's economic empowerment, and also issues around environmental justice, bringing women's voices into the climate justice discussion to ensure that women are not adversely affected by some of the decisions that are made on their behalf. We want to ensure that some of those decisions don't swing aggressively against women and bring about poverty. We also do a lot of research. We have research and publications. We carry out surveys. We have research publications, so information, education, communication. We've got quite a few publications that we've done around women's rights, women's entitlements, but also just basically educating women and the general population. And then of course we work on our institutional strengthening. So these are the pillars under which CRAWN operates, and we've got several programs, and I invite listeners and viewers to visit our website and see more about the work that we do.
Thank you Daisy, for introducing CRAWN Trust. And before I forget, this is a CRAWN Trust production, and this podcast has been sponsored by Uraia. Uraia is a not-for-profit organization, national civic education program, working to provide Kenyan citizens with quality, gender-responsive civic education about their constitutional rights and responsibilities, so that we can all protect and promote our democracy. Thank you, Uraia. And in today's episode, we seek to raise citizens' awareness about the Constitution and how to defend it. Specifically today, Daisy will be discussing about the two-thirds gender principle and its journey to its actualization. And that is the topic for today. So to our very first guiding question. 2022 is a very important year. We are heading into our elections. And just a quick brief on how the two-thirds gender principle is related to the August 2020 elections, and if the IBC has followed this two-thirds gender principle.
So the two-thirds gender principle has been a very controversial topic. It is a principle in the Constitution, actually in the Bill of Rights. One thing that I would like listeners and viewers to know is that a key pillar of the Constitution 2010 is the principle of inclusion.
Yeah.
Inclusion of previously marginalized groups, inclusion of previously marginalized areas. So when you look at the architecture of our Constitution, it provides for things like devolution. We know that there are certain parts of this country where, since independence, the government has actually neglected them, operated with a very light touch, and they don't even feel like they were part of Kenya. In fact, I remember in 2014, this was a year after the elections, and we had a meeting in Naivasha, and we had brought women from the county assemblies, the different county assemblies. And one of the ladies from Mandera said to me, Daisy, for us in Mandera, we are celebrating 1 year of independence. She says because she said there were things that they never thought that they would ever see in their county because of a lack of development, a lack of focus, very light touch of operation of government. She says things like roads. To see a road, when it rained, they would measure the road with the tree. You know that the road is between this tree and that tree because there's no road. Things like clinics and hospitals. These are not things that they were expecting to see because of how they had been neglected. So if we understand that devolution is a concept of inclusion, it is about ensuring that each part of Kenya gets allocated the necessary resources to develop and ensure that those people are able to maximize their full potential. Likewise, the two-thirds gender principle is a principle of inclusion. Women have been culturally, socially, politically, and economically marginalized. For the longest time, leadership was seen as a preserve of men, and women were relegated to the periphery. Anything to do with leadership, anything to do, especially political leadership. You can go and be the leader of your chama, you can be the leader of women's guild in church, or in your, you can be a leader anywhere, but the political realm, where decisions are made, where budgets are discussed, it was considered a male, it was not only male dominated, it was considered the preserve of men. If you look even pictures of our first cabinets and everything, they were only men. It was a government of men.
Yeah.
Men meaning male. There were no women. It was an odd thing. So if the perception and it was like an agreed consensus that leadership was for men. Occasionally we had 1-2 women here, people like Chelagat Mutai, who got elected very young from Nandi. But she was one of the very few women, Grace Onyango, what's her name, Phoebe Asio, Professor Julia Ojiambo. Very, very few women. We even remember them because they were so few, and it was almost astonishing to see them go there. But when you understand that leadership and politics is about our day-to-day lives, because today people are talking about UNGA. UNGA, it is the president has moved to the millers to tell them, look, we're going to subsidize, but bring down the cost of UNGA, because it affects your budget in the house. So when you understand that the discussions that are had in parliament, those political discussions, issues around representation, because what are you representing? You're representing the people's interests. That leadership requires the full participation of everybody, And so the Constitution has put in place a principle in the Bill of Rights that, and we must remember what the Bill of Rights is. The Bill of Rights is a statement of commitment by the government. We must remember that our rights are not given to us by the state. They belong to us because we are human. They are given to us by our Creator, and they belong to us because we are human. By having them in the Constitution, the government is committing itself to ensure that we enjoy those rights to the fullest extent possible. And among those rights is the right to representation and to be represented by one of our own. So there is a principle under the Article 27 on equality and non-discrimination that in any elective or appointive body, you cannot have more than 2/3 of the same gender. So we can't have a parliament of all men, and we can't have a parliament of all women. We must have a parliament that has women and men. That we must have a parliament that brings in persons with disability, that brings in young people, because all these people have diverse needs, and there are things that you will not think of because they don't affect you, or they affect you differently. So it is important to have every voice on that table to discuss issues around leadership and legislation, to discuss things of representation and oversight, and to allocate budgets and prioritize development. So that's really what the 2/3 gender principle is about. Unfortunately, it has been seen in a very different light. Because of the socialization bias, our politicians, instead of following through with the rule of law, because it is the Constitution that says that they must put in place the necessary legislation, they have refused to put in place the legislation, asking questions like, why do women want free things? How is it a free thing if you are a citizen in this country, you make up over half of our population, and what you are asking for is a seat on the table? In fact, the 2/3 gender rule is that at a minimum, you should have only a third. A third, at a minimum. 50-50, good. 2/3 is the tipping point, but at least at a minimum, you should have a third. But they begin to say, why do women want free things? You know, wanawake wanatakia nini? You know, it's like the way in the rural area when women were trying to become economically empowered, wanauliza, mwanamke anatakia nini pesa? It's like you have no needs. It's like the men are the ones who decide when you have a need. So this socialization bias has found its way into our legislature, so that there has been a straight up reluctance to implement the necessary legislation. In 2022, we are 12 years into the promulgation of the Constitution 2010, and it is the one piece of legislation that they have not passed, Article 100. How do you explain that if it is not a pure act of impunity? The president, this Jubilee administration, the first administration elected under the new Constitution, tasked with the responsibility of animating the Constitution, has led the charge in ensuring that we do not implement the 2/3. In appointments to cabinet, the president did not meet the 2/3. So even where legislation is not necessary, it's numbers, that you need 5 people. You can say we can have 3 women or 2 men, or it's numbers. He has not done that. In appointments, parastatal appointments, he has not done that. Diplomatic corps, he has not done that. But civil service. So you just see a reluctance in implementing what the Constitution requires, and what that does, it takes us back. So it's very disappointing because we have had to consistently go to court. Every single case that we have taken to court as women's rights organizations, and CRAWN Trust has been among them, to ask for the legislation to be put in place. The courts have given orders, Parliament ignores. Even the president, we went to court on the issue of cabinet. The courts found that the president was in violation, and he was required to ensure that his cabinet met the 2/3 gender principle. He didn't do it. it culminated in the order of a dissolution for Parliament. There is a dissolution order right now. Parliament should be dissolved because they have failed to implement the legislation. That's how far it has gone. So it's very unfortunate that despite the forward-looking nature of our constitution, we still have leaders who seem to be so afraid of the future, of what it means for women to be in leadership and to enjoy that shared space. They still seem to think that we are talking about role reversal. Wanaume kaeni nyumbani, we show you how it is done. That's not what it's about. We're saying we want to share this space and work together to develop our country, work together in prioritizing our development agenda, work together in ensuring that our country is vibrant. So it's very unfortunate. But there is good news. You know, women, once they get it, and they run with it. We have an unprecedented number of women on the ballot, seeking to be elected on dual gender seats. Right now, as we speak, we have over 20 women seeking to be governors. I mean, in 2017, we only had 6. In 2013, I think we had 2 or 3. We have over 20, I think there are 23. I don't know exactly, but I know there are over 20.
So you can see the number
seeking gubernatorial seats. We have over 200 women seeking National Assembly seats, constituencies, those dual gender seats, the 290 seats. We have over 40 women seeking senatorial seats. So it means that the women have got it. MCAs, we are still counting. We're still counting. So the women have come out. But I do think that IBC helped in that because up until the courts barred them from rejecting lists, remember that IBC had already told political parties, based on the Katiba Institute judgment of July 2017, that any party that submits a list for election that has more than 2/3 of the same gender will be rejected. And he stood his ground. It took one Adrian Kamogo to go to court a day before the deadline because Chebukati had said he was going to bar all lists, as in your list was going to be totally rejected. So the courts gave a stay on that order. But I believe that in an effort to ensure that they meet that threshold, political parties were willing, they opened up to allow women to find their way to the ballot, because the nomination process is where people fall out. That's where the fallout is. So we are making progress despite leaders wanting to hold us back. Women are determined to pull this cart into the 21st century where it is a norm. Just like today it is a norm for girls to go to school, women in leadership is going to be a norm. And we are very excited also. We have, out of 4 presidential candidates, 3 have female running mates. And we're talking about serious tickets that can make the presidency. So the likelihood of us having a female deputy president is almost, let me not say so that I'm not considered that I'm campaigning for a certain party, but we are seeing women at we have 56, is it 56 deputy governor running mates? Yeah, 56. In 2013, we had 9 women
deputy governors.
Deputy governors. This time, in I don't know how many we had in 2017, but this time we have 56. 56, I think we have 56.
Yeah, there are 56.
Female running mates for governors. So the men are beginning to see it's a lost cause. Trying to say that women wanataka nini na uongozi, that ship has sailed. It is the issue of women and 2/3 and full political participation. That issue is completely resolved. All we need is just to drag these the leaders into the 21st century with us.
Yeah, as you have mentioned Mandela, we were doing an analysis of whether there's any woman candidate vying for a seat, and we didn't find no governor, no senator, no MP, and no MCA. So meaning there is a lot of work that needs to be done in Mandela.
Absolutely. Mandela, there was Mandela, Siaya, and which one else? There are 3 counties where there's no single woman. So, yeah, I mean, now you can imagine, if we didn't have the women rep position, if we didn't have the county top-ups, then there would be no women.
And the nomination list by political parties.
You see? So, it's serious. It is serious business. So, we should not be having those kind of things. But it's also very exciting that in even those areas, conservative areas,
like
because, yes, where we have negotiated democracy, and it is elders who are male who determine clans, which clan will hold which position. And that is really problematic because, of course, the tribes are patriarchal. So they are male-led. I don't know, I think it's only Kikuyus, Nyumbaya Mobi, that is matriarchal, even though it doesn't seem to translate into how the women are elected, because our president is from Nyumbaya Mobi and he has been quite a hindrance in the implementation of the 2/3. But in those patriarchal societies, women don't feature in leadership. So you have the Council of Elders. I remember in 2013, which was the first election under the 2010 Constitution, they were even asking whether a man can be elected on the women rep position. You know, because they could not quite fathom women leaders, a woman who is a leader. They weren't getting it. They were like, but men can represent women's issues. So I think even just by their presence, the women, even those county assemblies, you know, those top-ups, they've worked.
Yeah, they have worked.
They've worked. Because women are leaders, mutafanya nini na wao. And when they find their footing there, we've seen women who were nominated have gone on to be elected, and now they are seeking second term. People like Martha Wangari, she was a nominated member of parliament with Senate. She's now MP Gilgil. She's defending her seat. Millie Odhiambo was nominated. She became an elected member, and many others.
Yeah, very many.
Yeah, so really it's just about women finding their footing on the political landscape, and it's all systems going. Maybe that's what the men are afraid of. But they will appreciate the 2/3 gender principle when it's their turn to be nominated.
Maybe they'll find a 2/3 men principle.
No, 2/3 gender principle is simply that at any point, men or women. So it's gender. It doesn't say women. Gender is not women. Gender is men and women.
Yeah, I think people tend to imagine that
to equate gender with women.
Yeah.
Yes, well, because the norm has been, when you talk about gender, because gender is really about the social implications of being male or female. So when you're talking about gender inclusion, we look at how then do we include women, because they are the ones who have been excluded, and they've been excluded because of the roles that they play. We cannot run away from the fact that women have certain roles within the community that take away from them the time and the ability to be able to engage. So like, if you're a young mother, you know, it's not, you know, you have to look after the children, you know, you have to be there for them. So that makes it difficult for you to then now go campaigning all day, because you have to be with the child, you know. So those roles do hold women back. However, our argument is that it has been used against women. There has been a move of women are denied leadership roles because they are women, you know? And that's what we are fighting against. Don't look at me because I'm a woman. Look at me as if I'm a leader, because we find many women grappling with certain questions. If she's married, then, and she's politically active, they say she has neglected her home. Who is going to look after
the kids? Yes,
because I know of one woman who, when she was a very strong candidate, in fact, she is now defending her seat for a 3rd time. But in the beginning, when she went out into the campaign field, they started bringing pictures of just a random man in a hospital bed, and they were spread around the constituencies, and they said, now this is the woman that you want to elect, and look at how she has neglected her husband. You know, so it's like If you go in, the home will be neglected. If you are unmarried, they're like, what kind of a woman is this? She's not married, if she doesn't have a family. If you're divorced, it's even worse. If you can't have children, you are barren, and now you will come and make the whole county or the whole place barren. So there are so many issues around women that men don't face. If you are married in a certain place, and you know, traditionally, once you get married, see, it is your family has given you away. If you try to buy there, they'll be like, this is a stranger, what is she coming to do here? We have a member of parliament who is elected where she was married, and she's not even from the same tribe, but she's such a good leader that now even the elders, they love her. But you have others who, if you go to vie where you were born, if you were married off, they say,
she's not ours.
This one is a stranger. Why is, like, there's one of the governor candidates who, when they were vying in 2017, the campaign was, you know, she's married to somebody from another tribe. Imagine if she dies, we will have to go and bury her. And we were like, now you have killed her, she's not dead, you know. So those kind of, just anything to hold women back. I think mercifully we have had very strong and courageous women who have rolled with those punches, you know. But with time, you know, just like with women and girls' education, with time, those are going to be non-issues. And once we start driving issues-based politics, not personality-based politics, we're going to get there. But for the time being, we have those pathfinders, the ones who are blazing the trail for us. They have to deal with some of those issues until people begin to see they are non-issues. It's like women who go for the dual gender seats. They are said, we have given women their seats, why are they coming for these ones of ours? You know? So we'll just have to keep on with the education and with the journey.
And that's why we find women trying to prove that themselves more. They end up working harder compared to a man. Women
are hard workers generally. Generally, you know, even like now, women are still the fewer ones in parliament, but they are notable. They are notable. You can see and you can hear the women. You can see the legislation that they have passed. A lot of this legislation which works for families and communities. The men are majority. Some of them even, they have not made a maiden speech. They were nakanga uko, like little mice. You know, very quiet. You don't hear from them. But they are on the field busy saying, wanawake wanataka nini na uongozi, you know.
And so, women leaders, they have to be trained. And I have seen that there's some work that CRAWN Trust is doing regarding the training of women leaders, and you even developed a workbook to train these women leaders.
Yes.
How important is training of these women leaders? Because there are very many women out there who want to take these political seats, but they need training. So.
Absolutely. Leadership is a skill. It's not just women who need to be trained. I think all leaders need to be trained. We have to come out of that mindset that leaders are born. You know, because there was that. When you go into leadership studies, you will hear about certain theories. So there was the great men theory, because anyway they were only men at that time. So it was if you had certain attributes, you know, if you looked a certain way, if you sounded a certain way, and you sounded very authoritative, you were considered a leader. But leadership is a skill, just like the way we learn about management and every other thing that we do. When people need to be trained in leadership, and it is important because you may have a desire to do certain things, but when you go there, maybe you don't know the ins and outs or how to negotiate, you know, some of the things that you need. So these are the different skills that we teach them. We teach them about leadership, even leadership theory, so that they can understand leadership. You know, because leadership for women comes with very many things. Like, for instance, you can learn about the glass escalator. You know, because we talk about the glass ceiling, right? Where women are supposed to break the glass ceiling. So that is breaking through to to levels that others have not, you know, or breaking through the limitations that have been put for women. However, for women, there is also a theory. There is also an aspect of leadership that is known as the glass escalator, where when everything has gone wrong, when things have gone very badly wrong, that's when they bring in women leaders. So they bring them in when a task is very difficult and when you're very likely to fail. So sometimes even being brought in as a woman leader may not necessarily be a plus. It may be as a showcase to show that women can't manage leadership. So if you are in a situation like that, what do you need to do? You know? So basically understanding leadership theories, understanding where you are within the leadership scale, things like communication, things like negotiations, how do you communicate? You know, you will find sometimes a lot of women fear going on to media stations, and you know, I keep telling them, just go, even just say whatever comes to you. Yes, because you know, men don't fear. Sometimes they go there and they just payuka. But help them to build courage around finding their voices and being authoritative about that leadership. Because for everybody, if you look at even things like public speaking, the things that people fear most, the things, if you look just generally among general population, things that people fear most: 1, death; 2, public speaking. So sometimes you may be given a platform to speak and you have no idea what to say. In a representation role, if you're going into parliament or the legislative assembly in the counties, you need to be able to speak. Even some of these men who have not spoken, maybe that's what they fear, because you fear that maybe you may make a contribution and you may sound foolish, or people will laugh at you or something. So you've got things that you need to overcome. There are many, many aspects of leadership, even understanding your role, because there are expectations of the people, and then there's really what is your role. Because we believe that also leaders should also be part of civic educators. There are many Kenyans who don't understand the role of their legislator. They expect you to be the answer to all their problems. So you see how they are constantly raiding the public purse, and they say, you know, we are mobile ATMs, but that's not your role. But many of them don't have the courage to be able to say to the people, this is not my work. I can't be coming here to be giving you my money. Because when somebody has died, they come to you. When somebody is born, they come to you. When somebody needs to go to school, when somebody is sick, you are the go-to for everything. So how do you resolve these issues? How do you manage your leadership role? There are some women who have gotten into leadership and they don't want it again. They're like, me, I don't want this. They will not defend their seats anymore. Why? Because they have been traumatized, you know, by leadership expectations. So there are many things that women do need to know. They're coming into a new space, understanding gender norms, understanding gender bias, where they need to, how do you agitate for what you want? I mean, if you talk to some of the early members of parliament, when they first went in, female members of parliament, when they first went in, there were no toilets for women. Women weren't allowed to walk into the chambers with their handbags. So, because leadership was not structured for women. So how do you negotiate that? How do you ensure that the systems provide for you to be able to carry out your role? Young women who come in and they become mothers, they had nowhere to put their children. You know, you remember there was that issue when one of the legislators went into the chambers with her baby, and it became a whole brouhaha, you know. But we need to understand that women have different roles. How do you negotiate those? How do you negotiate your gender roles within the leadership spectrum? So the women need to understand a lot, even about themselves, and we are always learning.
And as you can say, with women, the women leadership has changed over the years. If you can look at 10 years ago, women are not as equipped to the leadership skills, but now in 2022, women are taking leadership positions, women are speaking out, women are no longer afraid of the socialization that men have created for everyone. So Daisy, you have said that we still have a long way to implement the 2000 gender principle. So what is your call to action? What do governments need to hear? What do organizations need to hear? Do you need other women rights organizations to join this struggle of implementing the 2000 gender principle? Do you also need men to join this? Or it's just, is it a women agenda? Or is it a men agenda?
Every one of them have committed, either in 90 days or within 100 days, to fully implement the 2/3 gender principle. We have commitments for 50% of cabinet to be women. So already they have seen. For me, what I'm excited about is that women have become a political capital. You know, even though we have not quite consolidated our numbers to be a bargaining, a strong bargaining voice for the political, because we still have those networks that are known to, they are used, women's networks that are used to delegitimize the voices of those women who strongly push the political agenda. But I'm telling you, for me, it will be a very big shame for President Uhuru Kenyatta, because he was the first president under the new constitution, and he's a young man, and he has behaved like he's from the Stone Age when it comes to matters of the 2/3. But look, everybody is now running with it. People are running with it because they see it is a political agenda. The women's agenda is a political agenda. So it's a very big shame for him. I know that he has taken a lot of accolades, saying, my government has brought in more women. It's not his government, it's the constitution, because they could not get away with not appointing women. So even in cabinet, even though he didn't meet the numbers, you could not just give traditional roles. So we have women in non-traditional roles, heading the energy docket, foreign affairs, defense, strong ministries.
Sports, even sports.
Sports. Yes, even sports. But what I'm saying is that it's very unfortunate that a young man who has been exposed, because President Uhuru Kenyatta is a man who schooled abroad, so he's exposed. So even this backward thinking, he had the opportunity to set Kenya pace. How is it that Rwanda are the people who are giving us a run for our money? A country which just 20 years ago didn't even seem like it was viable. Today, they're leading on the world stage. That should be Kenya's position. Imagine, we are behind in the whole East African community. East Africa, even South Sudan have got, and they are still very mired in, trying to stabilize the country. But they have their third, Even Somalia, despite their challenges. So Kenya is without excuse. But for me, I am glad the women have taken the challenge, and we have seen the next government for sure I don't think is planning to have this, as we are not going to do running battles with it. Because the courts we have court orders. Many. It's just that this government is steeped in impunity. This government and parliament, the 11th and 12th parliament have not been good for the 2/3 gender principle. But I do think that it will go with the transition, those issues will be resolved. And if not, it will be very unfortunate. We have a petition with Femnet at the East African Legislative Assembly to call Kenya to task around this issue. So we hope that it will be resolved.
And hopefully the 13th parliament will have more women.
Hopefully it will, but it will be an illegal parliament. You know that. If it doesn't meet the 2/3 gender rule, it will be illegal. And this is where Kenya really needs to start operating within the rule of law. This is not, it's questionable.
Yeah, because you can't have a very progressive constitution and you're not implementing anything.
Precisely. Yeah.
And because we're even seeing Kenya hosting this big organizations like the United Nations Environment Program, but they're not implementing. The United Nations is not, they're not seeing the implementation of the constitution. They're not upholding the rule of law.
Well, they're not pushing Kenya. You see, there have been no sanctions internationally. They've been fighting President Uhuru Kenyatta. They made a he for she champion. He's invited to Women Deliver. And for me, I've been asking why. He needs barbs. He needs to be sent for barbs and be told, hey, Mr. President, you're letting us down.
Yeah. So, CRAWN Trust also observed the nomination exercise, and hopefully you will let us know if they will also be observing the election during the August 9. So tell us more about this process. Were there any challenges? What were the goals of the whole nomination exercise?
I think our politics is still maturing, and sometimes we want to be like America, forgetting that America is over 200 years in democracy, and we are how many years in democracy? I don't know. But let's call it 50 years, since when we got independence, we were a multi-party democracy. And there have been efforts to roll back. I don't think that our primary processes were anything, in fact, they were very disappointing. And Kenyans need to understand the importance of the nominations, because that's the primary process of the electoral. Elections are not an event, they are a process.
Yeah.
And the primary process is so critical, because that is where the people who will get onto the ballot are chosen. In our observation and in our engagement with political parties, we were not able to get the nomination rules from any political party.
To date?
To date, we are still on that treadmill. When we sought them from the registrar of political parties, they sent us to IBC. IBC wrote to us and said that while they are the custodians of the nominations rules, they can't give us the nomination rules of political parties. So the question arises, how can it be shrouded in such mystery? Because it needs to be a very open process. Each political party, everybody needs to know, these are the nomination rules for the political parties. And for us, what were we looking at? We wanted to see how each political party, because we were looking at 10 political parties, and all the major political parties, including the governing party Jubilee, we were looking to see how they are working towards ensuring that at least a third of their nominees would be of the opposite gender, women. So, and it is a requirement of the law, because Article 81B requires that elective process must ensure not more than 2/3. So we were not able to get this. So we were asking, then we even asked some of the people who participated in the nominations, did you get the nomination rules? They were just made to sign codes of conduct, because the nomination rules tells you this is how the process will be carried out, whether it's by delegates, whether it's by consensus, whether it's by direct nominations. We are going to use, like ODM, they used electronic means. These are the polling. All these things are supposed to be clear. It was most for where we observed, and because like for me, I was observing Nairobi, we found that for many of the seats, the nomination exercise was being carried out for MCA positions. So that the MP, governors and all, it was like negotiated, right? And so the question is, was this communicated to everybody? And it was there within the nomination rules, because it's allowed. Each political party can formulate its own rules. Even a party can say, we will be selecting our nominees using opinion polls like this, and we are going to use this. That's fine. So you decide whether you want to go to that party. It is okay. A political party has the right to determine the method that they will use. But it cannot be inky-pinky ponky, where you don't know. And that's what we saw, that it was not clear, and you were not. So even trying to see whether they were following their rules was very difficult, because we are not able to access the nomination rules. We call for IBC to be transparent. Cynthia, in fact, they are the ones, they are ever shouting, oh, we want transparency, accountability, but they themselves are very opaque. And for me, it's problematic, because if you have political parties that operate in such opaqueness, a political party is government in waiting, and each political party is formed with the aim of forming government. So if that's the kind of practice that they engage in within their internal processes, they'll carry that attitude into government, where they are not going to be accountable, they'll have opaque processes, they won't follow laid down procedures, assuming that they didn't follow their rules, because we don't even know what their rules are. So for me, it's problematic, and those are some of the electoral reforms that we must pursue. Because many Kenyans think that because they go into the voting booth during the elections, that they have engaged with the electoral process. No, that's the end of it. So you see people coming in and saying, now who are these people? But you didn't participate in
the nomination.
Yeah, Kenyans love their politicians. Many of them are not members of political parties, so they don't stand for anything. it's like the only ideology that embodies our political establishments is power by all means necessary. That's why you see a party like ODM can enter into a handshake with Jubilee when they were violent enemies, before, and in total opposition. It would be like, imagine Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton running for the presidency in America in 2024. You see how you are smiling? It's unlikely. Why? Because their political parties have clear ideologies and they are totally opposed to one another. And people can follow. You know that if it's the Democratic Party, this is what they stand for. If it is the Republican Party, this is what they stand for. If it's the Green parties, this is what they stand for. So that you know, should these people come into government, these are the policy directions that they will follow. In Kenya, everything is up in the air. If things are not good, we let us form a government of national unity. So you have all different players. So it's almost like the only guiding ideology on our political landscape is power by all means necessary. Policy direction will be decided like hocus pocus as they go along. So so those are the kind of things. So when we observe the nominations, I mean, it was just like you see that even followers, because we witnessed some violence, in certain areas. There were no penalties. In one area, the police moved swiftly to quell that, but that it's okay that people think that you can engage that way. That's very problematic, And of course, for women, it's also one of the deterrents, Varying of voters openly. Matriz bringing people
to vote.
That's an electoral offense, But I mean, it's like anything goes. So, in terms of sanitizing our political environment, we've still got a long way to go. Our political parties are really the weakest link in the democratic journey that we are on. And I'm glad, and I think we should appreciate the work that Anne Derito, the registrar of political parties, has done, because at least even now there is a membership register. You remember, people have been going to check and you find yourself registered in a political party and you didn't register. That goes to tell you that they engage in very dubious means in the name of meeting the necessary threshold, so that our leaders don't even respect basic democratic ideals, or even to go out and recruit members. That you'll steal people's names and identities. And the ORPP, I think, is working towards that. The government has also made a provision for funding to political parties. I think there are some amendments that have been made which will see more money going to even the smaller parties. But then we need better oversight. Political parties must use the funds for intended purposes. Like, for instance, we know the bigger parties, ODM, Jubilee, Wiper, Ford, NARC. Yes, these are parties that have been in coalition, so they have been able to access, they've gotten these funds. There's a requirement in the law, 30% of the funds that go to political parties must go to activities that encourage the participation of women, youth, and persons with disability. Are they doing that? If not, what are the penalties? Because they can't be misusing taxpayers' money like that. So we've got a long way to go. The primaries were less than ideal, but it's like Kenyans are happy with just Bora Uchaguzi, as opposed to Uchaguzi Bora. We need to fight for Uchaguzi Bora, not just Bora Uchaguzi. 5 years come around, we just tick the boxes, whether it is in a messy style or not. We need to come away from that.
And that's why Kenyans, for the next election, Kenyans need to start with the nomination exercise. They need to participate in the nomination exercise. So that's 2027.
Yeah, so we need to start that journey now. But we need to insist on the necessary reforms so that we demand transparency and accountability from the political parties. Where did they get all these delegates? Two small parties that only fufuka around elections. They were holding national delegates elections in Kasarani, in Ufungamano. Who are these delegates? Who are these people? Why are we allowing our politicians to take us around in circles like this? Yeah, there has to be some accountability and proper oversight.
So as we wrap up, what do citizens need to know now that they're going to vote on August 9th?
Well, citizens need to know that when we talk about the sovereign power belonging to the people, voting is the exercise of that sovereign power. Leadership, that power belongs to us, and we delegate it to these leaders. And so your vote actually counts for a lot. That's why your leaders become accessible around election time. Most of the time, and it's unacceptable that outside parliament, there are spokes and means and ways to keep people away from parliament. There is nothing like that. In established democracies, if you want to see your member of parliament, you make an appointment and you get to see them. There's nothing about it, you are being shooed away. So Kenyans need to realize that if you want your country to be different, if we want our country to be developed, if we want good leadership, actually the power lies with you, your vote, who you vote in. If the basis of your vote is your tribal leader, then don't expect anything more. Because the only thing they need to do is to be from your tribe. They don't have to be a good leader, they don't have to be honest, they don't have to be capable, they don't have to be, they just need to be from your tribe. If your vote, you vote based on who has given you money, then you have sold your birthright. Because there's nobody anywhere who gives legitimately money, hard-earned money for free like that. If it is transactional where I give you money, you give me the vote, then don't come and disturb me. It's like a kiosk. When you go to the kiosk, see, you want to buy something, let's say it is milk or it is bread. You give them money, they give you the product you want. You don't go there now to start asking them, how do you run your kiosk? It's none of your business. So, if you have chosen the transactional route, then you are responsible for the kind of leaders that we have. Because at the end of the day, they are going to have to go and replenish the source of that money. So they are not going to have time for you. They are going to look for business. They are the ones who will be doing dodgy tenders. They are the ones who will be involved in corruption. But you are the one who is enabling this. And how much money will meet your needs? Because even if you're given 1,000, which they are not given.
They're given 50 bob.
What even? It's not even a loaf of bread today. You know.
It's not even
so
milk. It's
not. So the Kenyans, we need to come out of this maze of a lack of understanding. Stop selling your birthright. Stop this tribal politics. Look for leaders who are people of integrity, and we know them. We know who is who. Leaders of integrity. You can't keep electing the same people, and then you get the same results, and then you lament.
And then you complain.
We need to get out of this rut. It is time for Kenyans to grow up and become sober in their approach and demand better from our leaders. And not only that, after the elections, your role does not end. Just like the way you supervise your worker in the office or at home, you must continue. Become an active citizen. Go for public participation. When memoranda are requested, go write your petitions. If you don't know how, come and see us, we'll help you. Because we train communities on how to make petitions, how to reach out to your leaders, understand the governance process, you know, demand for better. Because these are the people who determine the quality of life that you are leading. You are not going to, you demonstrate here saying unga, 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 but you make bad leadership choices.
And you don't even vote.
Yes. Today I was reminding people, as you cry for unga, this parliament are the same ones who did away with the strategic reserve and the strategic reserve fund. A country, a properly functioning country should always have strategic reserves of food to help you when you have famine, drought, these kind of things. Not for people to come with fake interventions of reducing prices for a few days. But you are crying, yet you go and they are the same people you elect. So my call to Kenyans is, please, your future is in your hands. Your future is in your vote. Please check out and know this, that these people are not saviors. They are not. Many of them don't even, they say they have solutions, but many of them don't have the solutions. Kenya is safe only in the hands of Yahweh. We are safe only in the hands of Yahweh. So, pray, may you be well guided, but it's time to understand the seriousness of the opportunity that we are given every 5 years. And of course, please remember the women. Elect women. Give women a chance. Give women a chance.
Yeah. I hope Kenyans you have heard from Daisy Amdany. And please vote. Go and vote for a woman. And for the next elections, ensure that you start from the political exercise, the political nominations exercise. And we have also learned that the two-thirds gender principle is not about women. It's about women, it's about men, it's about youth, and it's also about people living with disabilities. And it's also a principle of inclusion, a principle that will ensure all the needs of women are raised by women, for women, and it will be implemented by the women when we vote for these women leaders. And thank you so much, Daisy, for gracing us with your presence.
Thank you for having
for
me.
our very first episode. And we are really honored to have you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. And thank you for our viewers for listening in. And please join us for our next episode where we'll be discussing we'll be talking to a young person, telling us about her journey through politics. And also, we'll also be having another episode where we'll be hosting an older woman who has been in politics for quite some time, and she will take us through her journey through politics. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comment section. We will answer them during our next episode. We will leave the contact details for CRAWN Trust, where you can contact us in case you have any petitions, any women leadership related issue. We will address, and you can also visit our website to check to learn more about our work. Until next time, I have been your host, Cindy Kobe. Usawa, utangamano, na amani siku zote. Thank you.